Hello, welcome to AP Daily. My name is Dan Bonarigo, and I teach at Riverside Brookfield High School in Riverside, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. This video is on topic 1.3, program design and development. In this video, we'll learn that programmers use comments and or documentation to explain the purpose of their program code to themselves, collaborators, and others. So specifically, what will we learn? Well, the learning objective here is to describe the purpose of a code segment or program by writing documentation. And we hope you to gain this essential knowledge that program documentation is a written description of the function of a code segment, event, procedure, or program and how it was developed. Comments are a form of program documentation written into the program to be read by people and do not affect how a program runs. Programmers should document a program throughout its development. Program documentation helps in developing and maintaining correct programs when working individually or in collaborative programming environments. And not all programming environments support comments, so other methods of documentation may be required. So let's look at some examples. So once again, we're getting at how is a program developed? Well, programmers create something called program documentation in order to describe the overall program, right? In this documentation, they're going to say, hey, this is what the program is, this is what it does, this is what it's all about. Also to list the program specifications, which are going to describe the functions, procedures, methods within the code. They're going to describe maybe specific code segments. They're going to list the events and corresponding outputs. They're going to describe the development of the program. They're going to describe how other programs may interact with the program. So a lot of programs in their documentation, they say, hey, if you want to use this program, right, this is how you could interact with it. This is how you could have your program talk to this or, something like that. All right. And then you're going to list the contributors, the authors of the program, right? All right, so when does documentation happen? Well, documentation happens throughout the development of the program, right? It happens at the beginning. Well, you're going to start to list the specifications, right? When you think about, okay, what is the purpose of this program? You're going to write down, like, what are all of the things that this program is going to do? So you're going to list these things out. Okay, now you may end up editing that based upon your process and what you figure out you can and can't do based on limitations, things like that. Okay, you're going to document during, right? You're going to do this to keep track of your progress, right? You're going to document within the program, right? As you're programming, right? To make sure that things are going to work correctly, to make sure you can, pick up where you left off, right? You're not programming, for days and days and days. You might program for, a whole day and then you put in, some documentation so that the next day you can come and you can say, oh yeah, this is what I was stuck on, or this is where I was, or whatever. All right. Then you're going to document after, right, to explain the overall process, to edit the specifications, to, list the authors, list, who was working on what, to describe all of the interactions, things like that. All right. Documentation throughout can improve the following. It can improve the efficiency of the programming process. Like I said a little bit ago, right? If you talk about, if you write down for yourself, like, hey, this is what I was stuck on, when you come back to it the next day, it's going to make you more efficient. It's going to make it quicker. It's going to make things go more smoothly, right? Um, it's going to improve the programmer's ability to test and refine the program, right? Because if you have good documentation, you're going to remember, like, oh yeah, this is what I was trying to accomplish here. This is what I need to change. This is what I was struggling with initially, and now it works, right? All right. Then it's also going to improve programmers' response to bugs. So when people test this, when users test it, or when it's been released and it's having issues, then you're going to be able to say, oh yeah, at this part, this is who was working on it. This is, what they did. This is what they were struggling with. And so we're going to be able to fix problems with the program quicker. So how do programmers document while they're programming? Well, most programming languages offer a commenting feature, although some do not. There are some programming languages that don't. And so then you'd have to get creative with how you're going to do this. And that might be like you copy your program language into, a text document. And so then you can put in things, and you can say, hey, this is, what I need to do here, or, to put comments in. But most do allow commenting. All right. So what is commenting? Well, commenting allows programmers to write text within a program, but the text does not affect the program. So it's lines in the program that are not executed. Okay. So comments are for programmers to read. It's not for the computer to read. The computer is going to skip over the comments. All right. They don't have to be, in a certain like syntax or whatever. They just have to follow the rules for comments within the language. So this is a form of documentation and can be very useful when programmers collaborate or working individually. Like I said before, you might leave yourself comments that's going to make it easier for you to understand what you were doing or what you were struggling with. But when programs are working collaboratively, if programmers have good comments, they can, tell their other programmers, their collaborators, they can say, hey, this is what I was working on. This is what I was struggling with. This is something you need to do, and that can make the collaborative process much easier. All right. So let's look at some examples of comments. So in some text languages, all right. So Python is a real common language that people use. So comments appear on lines that follow the pound symbol or the hashtag, which is what a lot of people call it now, right? So any line that starts with this pound symbol is going to be turned off, basically. Whatever I write after the line, the computer is just going to skip over. The computer is not going to execute that line, right? Okay, what about Java, right? Another really common language. So there are 3 different ways we can comment in Java. We can use comments on a single line, right, that follow double forward slashes. You can use comments that extend on multiple lines. So multiple line comments appear between forward slash asterisk combinations. So you can see comments would appear in that way, all right? Or documentation comments, right? And so that would appear, it could be multiple line documentation comments that appear with a forward slash and then a double asterisk. And then at the end of the documentation comments, you would have an asterisk with another forward slash. All right. So those are 2 common text languages, but then let's look at a couple others. All right. So some other common text languages, JavaScript, C, C++, Swift, they all use a commenting scheme similar to Java. All right. Other ones, XML or HTML, these use a commenting scheme that looks like this. They have the less than, the exclamation point, and then the dash dash. Then they have their comments, and then they close that. And they can be single or multi-line comments. AppleScript or Pascal, they use a commenting scheme that looks like this with parentheses and the asterisk. All right, and these are just a couple of examples of text languages and their commenting schemes. But there's tons and tons of other languages, and some of them use similar commenting schemes, others use different ones. You just have to look up in the programming language documentation what their commenting scheme is if they offer a commenting scheme. Now, I know that many people use a block-based language. A lot of students in this class use block-based languages. So let's take a look at like Scratch. That's a common block-based language, or App Inventor. All right. So in Scratch, you have a little box that pops out, and I wrote in there, this is a comment in Scratch. Now, in Scratch, you can actually minimize that comment. And so by clicking that little arrow in the comment bin, it makes it look smaller, right? So you can't read the whole comment, but then you could expand it if you wanted to see it. All right. App Inventor also allows comments, and there's that little question mark and a little bubble. It's like a thought bubble or a speech bubble. Like if you're looking at like a comic, it's really kind of cool looking, where it says this is a comment in App Inventor. So if you minimize it, there's just that little question mark, right? So like if I was reading somebody's code and I clicked on their question mark because I want to say like, hey, what does this do? It would pop up and it would tell me what it does based upon what the programmer wrote in the comments. All right. And so what should we take away from this AP daily video? Well, we should be able to describe the purpose of a code segment or program code by writing documentation. We should understand program documentation is a written description. Comments are a form of program documentation. Programmers should document a program throughout its development. Program documentation helps in developing and maintaining correct programs, and not all programming environments support comments, so other methods of documentation may be required. Thank you for joining this AP Daily video.